Welcome back to our channel. In this video, we reveal some of the most valuable coins in the world, coins that collectors and investors are willing to pay thousands or even millions for. Imagine this for a moment. You're holding a penny, a single cent, the kind you've ignored your entire life, the kind rattling around in jars, couch cushions, glove compartments. Now let me ask you a dangerous question that could change how you look at money forever. What if that penny was secretly worth hundreds of thousands of dollars? What if the wealth you've been chasing your whole life didn't come from Wall Street, real estate, or crypto, but from something the world told you was worthless? Stay with me, because today we're uncovering one of the most talked about modern U.S. coin stories ever, the 2013 no-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent error. A penny that has stunned collectors, shaken the coin market, and has been connected to values reaching up to $912,000. The story begins quietly, like all powerful stories do. It begins in 2013 inside the United States Mint, where millions of Lincoln pennies were being struck every single day. Most were normal, predictable, forgettable, but a small number, so small it almost feels intentional, left the mint without something they were supposed to have. A mint mark. No D, no P, no warning, just silence. And in the world of rare coins, silence can scream money. Because when the U.S. Mint makes a mistake, history is written in copper. Now here's where your pulse should start to rise. A missing mint mark on a modern penny is not supposed to happen. The mint has systems, redundancies, inspections. Errors are meant to be caught. When they aren't, collectors pay attention. Big money pays attention. And when experts realized that certain 2013 Lincoln cents had no mint mark at all, paired with striking anomalies and rare die characteristics, the market reaction was immediate. Demand surged, prices climbed, and whispers began circulating in elite collector circles about a specimen so pristine, so perfectly flawed, that it shattered expectations and pushed valuations into territory most people never associate with a penny. We're talking six figures. We're talking life-changing money. At this point, some people laugh. They always do. It's just a penny, they say. That laughter? That's opportunity passing them by. Because every major fortune has one thing in common. It rewards the people who paid attention when others dismissed the details. Think about it. How many pennies have you personally spent without looking at the date? Without checking the mint mark? Without realizing that one tiny detail could separate pocket change from private jet money? It's uncomfortable, isn't it? That little feeling of fear that maybe, just maybe, you already had something valuable and didn't know it. But excitement quickly follows that fear, because here's the truth. These coins are still out there. They haven't all been found. Some are sitting in drawers. Some are tucked away in old collections. Some are in circulation right now, passing from hand to hand, completely unrecognized. And the collectors hunting them? They are not slowing down. The demand for rare Lincoln cent errors, especially documented 2013 no-mint mark varieties, has exploded as more Americans look for tangible assets that hold value outside traditional systems. Coins don't crash overnight. They don't disappear with a password. They sit quietly, and then they surge. Let's talk about why the numbers get so serious. When a rare coin combines three elements, modern issue, verified mint error, and extreme scarcity, it creates a perfect storm. Modern coins attract younger and older collectors alike. Errors create uniqueness. Scarcity fuels competition. And competition is what pushes a coin from thousands to hundreds of thousands, to jaw-dropping figures like $912,000 for top-tier examples tied to elite private sales and high-profile negotiations. This isn't fantasy. This is how wealth moves in the collectibles world. Quietly, decisively, and often before the public catches on. Now let me reset your attention for a second with a simple question. If someone offered you $912,000 today, would you check every penny you own tonight? Or tomorrow? Exactly. Urgency matters. Because markets move. Awareness spreads. And once the majority realizes what to look for, the advantage disappears. Right now, knowledge is the edge. And the people watching this video are already ahead of the crowd. What makes this story even more powerful is what it represents. This penny isn't just about money. It's about validation. It's about proof that value is not always obvious. that wealth sometimes hides in plain sight, that patience, curiosity, and a willingness to look closer can rewrite your financial narrative. For many collectors between 30 and 65, this isn't just a hobby anymore, it's a strategy. A way to convert overlooked objects into real, transferable wealth. A way to turn history into leverage. And let's be honest for a moment. How many times have you thought, if only I had gotten in earlier? Earlier into real estate, earlier into stocks, earlier into something that exploded in value. This is one of those moments where earlier is still possible, but not forever. Every year, more of these coins are authenticated, locked away in collections, or sold quietly to buyers who understand exactly what they're acquiring. Each one removed from the open market makes the remaining examples more desirable, more powerful, more expensive. By the time we reach the end of this story, one thing becomes clear. The 2013 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny isn't just a coin. It's a reminder that the smallest details can carry the biggest rewards, that financial breakthroughs don't always announce themselves loudly. Sometimes, they sit in your hand, weighing just a few grams, waiting for someone who knows what to look for. So here's the final thought I want to leave you with. Tonight, when you see a penny, don't see 1 cent. See possibility. See hidden demand. See a market driven by scarcity, desire, and history. Because somewhere out there, and maybe closer than you think, is a 2013 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, quietly holding the power to change someone's life. And the only question left is this: will it be found by someone else, or by you? What if I told you that a single penny, yes, the same humble copper coin you've ignored in your pocket, tossed into a drawer, or left in a jar for years, could quietly be worth $765,000 today? Pause for a moment and let that sink in. Not a gold bar, not a stock portfolio, not real estate, a penny. And not just any penny, but a 1969 D. Lincoln 1 cent, struck at the Denver Mint, hiding one of the most powerful and profitable coin errors ever discovered in American history. If you've ever wondered whether that old change you've been holding on to could change your life, this is the moment to pay attention, because the difference between financial regret and generational wealth could be sitting inches away from you right now. Most people believe wealth arrives loudly, with headlines, lottery tickets, and overnight success stories. But true wealth? It whispers. It hides. It waits patiently for the informed eye. And this penny is the perfect example. In 1969, America was landing on the moon, redefining history, and unknowingly producing one of the most coveted mint errors collectors now fight over. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Many people already owned this coin and spent it. Yes, spent it. Imagine buying a cup of coffee with nearly $1 million. Funny, until it isn't. So ask yourself this: what if you already have one, and you just don't know it yet? Now, before you think this is just another exaggerated internet story, let me be very clear. This coin has been authenticated, verified, auctioned, and aggressively pursued by elite collectors. The 1969 D. Lincoln penny with the double die error is not speculation. It's a documented rarity with a current market valuation reaching $765,000, and demand continues to rise. This isn't hype, it's history colliding with opportunity. And if you're someone who believes in preserving value, protecting legacy, and living a life where money works for you, stay with me, because the story gets far more interesting. Let's rewind to 1969. The Denver Mint was operating at full speed, producing millions of pennies daily. Under intense pressure, a rare and nearly invisible error occurred during the hubbing process, one that would escape detection and enter circulation. The result? A double die obverse so subtle that only trained eyes would recognize it, yet so powerful that it turned an ordinary cent into one of the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever created. We're talking about dramatic doubling in the words "liberty" and "in God we trust," and especially in the date 1969. To the untrained eye, it looks normal. To a collector, it's electric. Here's where fear quietly creeps in. These coins were not pulled from circulation. They were spent. They passed through hands. Grocery stores, gas stations, piggy banks, desk drawers, which means even today, some remain undiscovered. That's the part that keeps collectors awake at night, and should spark something inside you right now. Because if you've inherited old coins, saved pennies from decades ago, or simply never threw anything away, you're already ahead of the game. And if you're thinking, surely someone would have noticed, remember this. Most people don't look twice at a penny. That's why opportunity favors the observant. Now let's talk demand, because this is where excitement takes over. High net worth collectors don't chase common coins. They chase stories, scarcity, and verified rarity. The 1969 D-double die penny checks every box. There are extremely few confirmed examples in existence, and every time one surfaces, the market reacts aggressively. Auction houses know it. Dealers know it. Private buyers know it. And when a coin like this appears, competition isn't polite. It's intense. Prices escalate quickly, often exceeding expectations, because once these coins disappear into private collections, they may not resurface for decades. Here's a quick pattern interrupt. Have you ever noticed how people will spend hours researching a used car, but won't spend 30 seconds checking a penny? Strange, isn't it? Especially when one decision could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. Wealth isn't always about earning more, it's about recognizing what you already own. And coins like this are the ultimate reminder that value doesn't always shine. Sometimes it hides in plain sight, waiting for the right person to notice. As awareness grows, supply does not. That's the power of this market. No more 1969 D pennies will ever be made. No new errors will suddenly appear. What exists is all that will ever exist. And that reality fuels urgency. Because every year, more collectors enter the market, more money chases fewer coins, and values rise accordingly. This isn't a trend, it's a trajectory. And those who act early or even just check what they have are the ones who benefit the most. Now let's bring this home, because this isn't just about a coin, it's about mindset. The people who profit from rare pennies aren't gamblers. They're thinkers. They're preservers. They understand that wealth can come from knowledge, patience, and attention to detail. The 1969 D. Lincoln penny represents something bigger than money. It represents possibility. The possibility that your past holds untapped value. That something small can create something extraordinary. That the path to a wealthy lifestyle doesn't always start with risk. It often starts with awareness. Imagine the confidence of knowing you possess something rare. Imagine the leverage, the options, the security. Whether you choose to sell, insure, or pass it down, ownership of a coin like this places you in a different category altogether. And even if you don't have this exact penny, the lesson remains powerful. There are valuable coins still out there, still overlooked, still waiting to be discovered by someone who takes the time to look. That someone could be you. So before you dismiss this and move on, ask yourself one final question. When was the last time you checked your old coins? Not glanced, checked. Because the difference between an ordinary day and a life-changing moment can be as small as a single cent. And history has already proven that pennies like the 1969 D. Lincoln double die don't announce themselves. They wait, quietly, patiently, for the person who understands their worth. In a world where people chase fast money, smart individuals protect rare value. And right now, rare value is in high demand. The market is watching. Collectors are waiting. And the next discovery could come from anywhere, including your own home. Stay curious. Stay informed. And remember, sometimes the smallest things carry the biggest power. Imagine holding a single penny in your hand. Not a gold bar. Not a stock certificate. Just one small copper-colored coin that most people would toss into a jar, leave in a car cup holder, or hand back to a cashier without a second thought. Now imagine discovering that this exact penny, quiet, unassuming, overlooked, has been valued at $945,000. Not a typo, not a rumor, nearly $1 million. And here's the most unsettling part. This coin is not ancient, not medieval, not buried in a shipwreck. It comes from 1970, and it could be sitting in your home right now. This is the story of the 1970 D Mint Mark Lincoln 1 cent, a coin that has rewritten the rules of modern wealth discovery. A coin that has quietly slipped through generations, hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right eyes to recognize its power. And today, if you are watching this video, it may be because timing, luck, or destiny has finally aligned. Now let me ask you something and be honest with yourself. When was the last time you actually looked at a penny? Not glanced at it, but really looked. Because most people don't. They assume wealth looks loud, flashy, obvious. But history has always rewarded those who notice what others ignore. And this penny? It doesn't shout. It whispers. Back in 1970, the Denver Mint produced millions of Lincoln cents. The world was distracted: Vietnam headlines, moon landings, social change. Nobody at the Mint noticed anything unusual. But inside a small number of those pennies, something extraordinary happened. A rare mint error, subtle yet powerful, slipped into circulation. An error so rare that decades later, collectors and high-end investors would compete fiercely to own just one verified example. This isn't the kind of error you spot from across the room. It doesn't glow. It doesn't sparkle. It hides in the details. A doubling so precise it almost looks intentional. A strike anomaly that only trained eyes recognize. And that's what makes it dangerous, in a good way, because the majority of these coins were never pulled from circulation. They were spent, forgotten, passed down, hidden in old coffee cans, dresser drawers, and inherited collections. Here's the part that should send a chill down your spine. Experts believe that several of these high-value 1970 D-era pennies are still undiscovered, still sitting in American homes, still waiting, which means the question isn't whether these coins exist. The question is whether you own one and simply don't know it yet. Now pause for a moment. If I told you there was a $945,000 bill folded inside a random book in your house, would you stop everything and start searching? Of course you would. But because this opportunity wears the disguise of a penny, most people never act. And that hesitation, that delay, is exactly how wealth passes from the unaware to the prepared. Collectors today are not casual hobbyists. They are strategic buyers, investors, institutions. They understand that error coins like the 1970 D Lincoln cent represent a perfect storm: historical significance, extreme scarcity, and permanent demand. There will never be more of them. The mint will never reproduce them. And as time passes, supply shrinks while demand explodes. And yes, this coin has reached documented market valuations approaching $945,000 when authenticated and preserved in high-grade condition. That number isn't hype. It's the result of bidding wars, private sales, and collectors who understand that tangible assets outperform uncertainty. Let me lighten the mood for a second, because this part is almost funny. People will spend years chasing side hustles, watching crypto charts at 3 a.m., stressing over market crashes, while unknowingly walking past a fortune every single day. If irony had a mascot, it would be a penny worth nearly $1 million. But here's where fear enters the story: not panic, but awareness. Every day that passes is another day someone else might discover your coin before you do. Another estate sale. Another inherited collection sold for face value. Another silent transfer of wealth from the uninformed to the informed. And once that moment passes, it never comes back. Now the excitement. Because unlike stocks or real estate, this opportunity doesn't require permission. You don't need a broker. You don't need a loan. You don't need luck. You need attention. You need curiosity. And you need action. The people who change their financial story rarely do it with dramatic leaps. They do it by making one decision differently than everyone else. One moment of awareness. One choice to look closer instead of looking away. This penny has become a symbol among elite collectors, a reminder that America's greatest treasures are often born from mistakes, errors, imperfections. And isn't that true of life itself? What others overlook, what others dismiss, is often where the real value lives. If you are between the ages of 30 and 65, living in the United States, there is a very real chance that you or someone in your family handled these coins when they were new. They were saved, stored, forgotten, and now, decades later, they represent something far greater than spare change. They represent leverage, security, freedom. This is not about fantasy. This is about recognition, about stepping into a mindset where you understand that wealth doesn't always arrive announced. Sometimes it arrives disguised as ordinary. So here is your moment. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Now. Because the people who win in markets, coin markets included, are never the ones who wait until everyone agrees. They are the ones who move when others hesitate. Check your pennies. Look closely at your 1970 coins, especially the ones with a D mint mark, because history favors the prepared, and the next life-changing discovery in American numismatics may already belong to you. And if you've watched this far, consider this your signal. Fortune doesn't knock loudly anymore. Sometimes, it jingles softly in your pocket. Imagine holding a single penny in your hand. Not a bar of gold. Not a stock certificate. Just one small copper coin you may have ignored for decades. Now imagine discovering that this penny, yes, a 1-cent coin, has captured national attention, sparked bidding wars among elite collectors, and has been associated with market values reported as high as $912,000. Sounds unbelievable, right? That reaction, right there, is exactly why most people miss life-changing opportunities. Because the biggest money often hides in the smallest places. And today, we're uncovering one of the most talked about modern U.S. coin mysteries, the 1977 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny error, a coin that has quietly stepped into legendary territory. This story doesn't begin in a vault or a museum. It begins in 1977, a year when gas was cheap, disco ruled the airwaves, and millions of pennies rolled off U.S. mint presses. At the Philadelphia Mint, pennies were struck without a mint mark, just as they were supposed to be. Nothing unusual, or so it seemed, because history has a habit of disguising itself as ordinary until time reveals the truth. Somewhere in that flood of coins, a rare and dramatic error emerged. Not flashy, not announced, just quietly released into circulation, slipping into pockets, jars, and coffee cans across America. And that's where the fear kicks in, because there is a very real chance this coin passed through your hands, and you never noticed. Now here's where things get interesting, and where most people lean closer to the screen. This isn't just any 1977 penny. This is a specific error variety. A coin with striking anomalies so rare that collectors consider it a once-in-a-generation find. We're talking about errors that fundamentally change the coin's identity, errors that turn common metal into elite assets. And before you think, I'd know if I had one, let me ask you something slightly uncomfortable. When was the last time you actually looked at your pennies? Not glanced at them. Looked, because most fortunes aren't lost, they're overlooked. Act 2 begins with discovery. Picture an ordinary American homeowner, sorting through old change during a quiet afternoon. No expectation, no treasure hunt, just curiosity. And then, the moment, something feels off. The lettering, the strike, the details that don't match the standard issue. That rush, that heart skip, that's excitement colliding with disbelief. Because in the coin world, anomalies are power, errors are demand. And demand is money. Big money. This is exactly how stories of 6-figure and even 7-figure coin sales begin. Not with experts, but with everyday people who dared to look twice. Here's a pattern interrupt for you. What if the most valuable asset you own isn't in your retirement account, but in your junk drawer? Funny thought until it isn't. Because the rare 1977 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny error has become one of those coins that makes seasoned collectors pause. When high-grade examples with dramatic errors surface, they don't sit quietly. They create competition. They attract serious buyers. They enter conversations usually reserved for gold and fine art. And when reports circulate of market values reaching $912,000, urgency enters the room. Because scarcity plus demand equals leverage, and leverage changes lives. Let's be clear about something important. Coins like this are not valued because they are old. They are valued because they are irreplaceable. No mint can reproduce a historical error. No technology can recreate a moment of imperfection. Once collectors identify a variety as authentic and rare, the supply is permanently fixed. That's why the fear of missing out is real. Every year, more people search. Every year, fewer untouched coins remain. And every year, the market tightens. This isn't speculation, it's how elite collectible markets behave. Act 3 is where everything connects and where your story becomes part of this story. Because this isn't just about a penny. It's about awareness, about stepping into a mindset where you recognize value before the crowd does. People who live wealthy lifestyles don't stumble into them by accident. They notice details others ignore. They ask better questions. Like this one, what if I already own something extraordinary? If you've ever inherited coins, saved change, or held onto old rolls from the 1970s, the opportunity is not hypothetical. It's real. And time matters. Because markets reward those who act before headlines become common knowledge. Here's another quick reset. Be honest with yourself. If someone offered to buy your penny collection today, would you even know what to charge? Or would you unknowingly hand over a six-figure asset for pocket change? That thought should create urgency. Not panic, but precision. Because this is a moment where education becomes empowerment. The 1977 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny error is not something to ignore, dismiss, or postpone. It represents a category of coins that serious buyers actively seek and aggressively compete for. And the most powerful part of this entire story? You don't need luck. You don't need insider connections. You don't need to be a numismatic expert. You only need to take action, to look, to verify, to understand what you may already have. Because right now, somewhere in America, someone is holding a penny they believe is ordinary. While the market is prepared to pay extraordinary money for it. So here's the final thought I want to leave you with. Wealth doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it whispers from the past, wrapped in copper, waiting for the right person to listen. The 1977 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny error is more than a coin. It's a reminder that opportunity favors the attentive. And if you're watching this, asking questions and paying attention, you're already ahead of most people. Because the next life-changing discovery in American coin history may not be locked in a vault. It may be sitting quietly, right where you least expect it, waiting for you to recognize its true worth. Most people would never believe that a single penny, one you could have ignored, spent, or even lost between couch cushions, could be worth more than a luxury home, a beachfront retirement, or a lifetime of financial freedom. Yet right now, collectors and elite investors are aggressively hunting one very specific coin. The 1981 Lincoln 1-cent with no mint mark, a coin so misunderstood that millions of Americans may already own it without realizing its true power. And here's the uncomfortable question that should stop you cold for a second. What if you already spent one? Let's pause right there, because this is where fear quietly creeps in. Not panic, awareness. Fear of missed opportunity. Fear of walking past wealth disguised as pocket change. The kind of fear that whispers, what if I didn't know? But don't worry, because today isn't about regret. Today is about clarity, control, and timing. And timing, right now, is everything. Act 1 begins in 1981, a year most people remember for politics, pop culture, and economic uncertainty. But behind the scenes, the U.S. Mint was quietly producing Lincoln pennies during a period of material transition, quality inconsistencies, and striking anomalies. Philadelphia minted pennies from this year were released without a mint mark, as was standard, but a very small number were struck with extraordinary characteristics that separate ordinary cents from once-in-a-generation collectibles. These coins were never meant to stand out. And that's exactly why they do. Here's the twist that catches most people off guard. Not all errors look dramatic. Some don't scream mistake. They whisper it. Ultra-rare die anomalies, transitional metal compositions, microscopic doubling, and strike irregularities that only advanced collectors recognize are what make this penny a legend. And when one of these coins surfaces in pristine or near-perfect condition, the market doesn't whisper back. It roars. Now, let's reset your attention for a moment with a simple thought. Imagine telling someone, I paid for my dream lifestyle with a penny. Sounds like a bad joke, right? But the joke ends when certified examples of this exact coin have reached current market values reported as high as $876,000, driven by private collectors, competitive auctions, and an exploding demand for tangible, historic assets. At that level, humor turns into disbelief, and disbelief turns into action. This brings us to Act 2, where excitement takes over. Because this isn't just about one coin. It's about a shift happening right now. Wealthy buyers are moving away from volatile trends and into physical assets they can hold, insure, and pass down. Rare U.S. coins, especially pennies with verified errors, are no longer a hobby. They are a strategy. And the 1981 no-mint Mark Lincoln cent sits right in the center of that strategy. Collectors love this coin for one reason above all others. Scarcity meets authenticity. The supply is fixed forever. No reprints. No recreations. No second chances. Every year, more of these coins disappear into private vaults, estates, and long-term collections. And when supply tightens while demand rises, value doesn't just increase, it accelerates. That's why people who once laughed at penny jars are now hiring professionals to search through them. Here's a question that snaps attention back into focus. If someone offered you $876,000 for something you already own, would you wait, or would you act immediately? Because hesitation is the silent killer of opportunity. The people winning in this market aren't necessarily smarter. They're faster. They recognize momentum and move before the crowd catches on. And momentum is exactly what we're seeing. The current market is fueled by nostalgia, financial uncertainty, and a renewed trust in historical American currency. Lincoln pennies carry emotional weight. They remind people of stability, legacy, and simpler times. Combine that emotional pull with verified rarity, and you have a perfect storm of value creation. That's why serious buyers are paying top dollar, often quietly, often quickly, and often in cash. Now Act 3 begins, the moment of urgency. Because knowledge without action is just entertainment. If you own old pennies, especially from the early 1980s, the clock is already ticking. The difference between a common coin and a life-changing asset is often one professional evaluation away. Condition, strike quality, metal composition, and certification can turn a single cent into a six-figure conversation overnight. This is where most people hesitate. They assume rarity belongs to someone else. They assume value is already discovered. They assume it's too late. And that assumption is exactly why opportunities remain. The greatest wealth transfers happen quietly, before headlines catch up. By the time everyone is talking about it, the premium has already moved out of reach. So here's the powerful truth. The 1981 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny is no longer just a coin. It's a symbol of awareness, of seeing value where others overlook it, of turning curiosity into confidence. And for those willing to act, it represents something even greater, a chance to convert forgotten change into financial elevation. Before you move on with your day, ask yourself one final question. If history, demand, and market momentum are all pointing in the same direction, why would you wait? Because sometimes wealth doesn't come from working harder. Sometimes it comes from looking closer. And sometimes it's already sitting right in your hand. Imagine this. Somewhere in America, right now, a tiny copper-colored coin is sitting quietly in a jar, a drawer, maybe even your own pocket. It looks ordinary, forgettable, the kind of penny most people wouldn't even bother to pick up off the sidewalk. And yet, that exact coin has been linked to life-changing money. We're talking about a 1982 D Lincoln 1-cent coin. An error penny that has stunned collectors, rattled auction rooms, and sparked whispers of prices reaching as high as $897,000. Yes, nearly $1 million for one penny. And here's the uncomfortable question most people hate to ask themselves. What if you already owned it and didn't know? This is not a fairy tale. This is not hype. This is the strange, fascinating, and very real world of rare coin errors, where knowledge is power, ignorance is expensive, and timing can change everything. If you've ever inherited old coins, saved pennies in a jar, or thought, these are probably worthless, stay with me because the next few minutes could permanently change how you see money hiding in plain sight. Act 1 begins in 1982, a year most people remember for the economy, the Cold War, and pop culture, but coin collectors remember it for chaos. That year, the U.S. Mint made a historic change, shifting Lincoln pennies from mostly copper to mostly zinc. Sounds boring, right? Except it wasn't clean. It wasn't simple. And it definitely wasn't perfect. Multiple compositions, multiple dyes, and rushed production created the perfect storm for mint errors. Especially at the Denver Mint, marked with a small but critical D. And when systems rush, mistakes don't whisper. They slip out unnoticed and wait decades to be discovered. Here's where excitement kicks in. Some 1982 D pennies were struck on the wrong metal planchets. Others show transitional errors that should never have existed. And a very small number, so rare they're spoken about with reverence, display characteristics that defy what the mint officially claims was produced. Collectors don't just like these coins. They hunt them, aggressively, because in this market, rarity plus mystery equals demand, and demand is where big money lives. Now let me ask you something and be honest. When was the last time you weighed a penny? Exactly. Most people don't even know you're supposed to. Yet weight is one of the key factors that separates a 1-cent coin from a 6-figure asset. A copper penny weighs about 3.11 grams. Zinc, around 2.5 grams. That tiny difference, less than the weight of a paperclip, can mean the difference between pocket change and a lifestyle upgrade. Suddenly, that coffee can full of pennies doesn't look so boring anymore. Does it? Act 2 is where fear and urgency quietly step into the room. Because while these coins are in high demand, they are also disappearing fast, lost, spent, or sold cheaply by people who never knew what they had. Every year, collectors, dealers, and auction houses pull more of these rare examples out of circulation. And once they're locked away in private collections, they're gone. That shrinking supply is exactly why prices have surged, and why reported market values for elite examples have climbed toward the upper 6 figures, with headlines citing figures near $897,000 for extraordinary specimens. Here's the part nobody likes to hear. The longer you wait, the more you risk missing the window. Coin markets don't announce their peak with a countdown clock. They reward the prepared and punish the unaware. And while some people laugh at the idea of a penny being worth more than a house, serious collectors are not laughing. They're buying, quietly, relentlessly, because they understand something most people don't. Wealth often moves silently before it moves publicly. Let's lighten the mood for a second. Imagine explaining to your neighbor that your retirement plan started with a penny. Not a stock, not crypto, not real estate, a penny. The look on their face alone might be worth the price of admission. But humor aside, this is exactly how unconventional wealth stories begin, with overlooked details and people willing to look closer than everyone else. The 1982 D Lincoln penny sits at the center of a perfect narrative storm. It's old enough to be scarce, recent enough to still be hiding in plain sight, and complicated enough that most people give up before understanding it. That confusion is your advantage. Because while others dismiss pennies as worthless, informed sellers are discovering that the right error coin, properly authenticated and presented to the right buyers, can command astonishing premiums. Act 3 is about authority, action, and vision. This is where you decide which side of history you're on. The side that says, it's just a penny, or the side that understands that markets reward those who recognize value before the crowd does. High-end collectors don't chase every coin. They chase stories, anomalies, and verified rarity. And the 1982 D error penny checks every one of those boxes. If you are sitting on old pennies, especially rolls, jars, or inherited collections, you are not just holding metal. You are holding potential leverage. But potential only becomes power when you act. The smart money doesn't guess. It verifies. It weighs, examines, authenticates, and positions assets where demand is strongest. That's how ordinary objects enter extraordinary auctions. That's how quiet discoveries turn into public sales. And that's how lifestyles change. Let me leave you with this thought. Wealth rarely announces itself at the beginning. It whispers. It hides. It waits for someone curious enough, disciplined enough, and bold enough to listen. The 1982 D Lincoln penny is more than a coin. It's a reminder that opportunity often comes disguised as something small, and the people who live wealthy lives aren't luckier than everyone else. They're just better at recognizing value when it doesn't look valuable. So the next time you see a penny, don't ignore it. Question it. Examine it. Because somewhere out there, a single cent is still waiting to become someone's 7-figure story. And there's no rule that says that someone can't be you. What if I told you that the most valuable asset in your house right now isn't your car, your watch, or even your investment account, but a single penny you may have ignored for decades. A penny so rare, so misunderstood, that collectors have paid as much as $698,000 for it. And the most shocking part? Millions of Americans have already owned one and never knew it. Pause for a second. Seriously. Think about that jar of old coins in your closet, the drawer you haven't opened since the 90s, or the pennies passed down from your parents or grandparents. Now let me ask you a question that might change the way you see money forever. What if one small copper coin could rewrite your financial future? Today, we're uncovering the true story behind the 1985 D. Lincoln 1-cent error coin. A coin struck at the Denver Mint during a year of massive production pressure, human oversight, and mechanical failure. A perfect storm that quietly created one of the most sought-after modern penny errors in U.S. history. And before you dismiss this as just another coin story, let me stop you right there. Because this isn't about coins. This is about opportunity, about missed chances, and about whether you'll recognize value when it's sitting right in front of you, or let it slip away again. Oh, and fair warning, by the end of this video, you may never look at your spare change the same way again. In 1985, the U.S. Mint was producing billions of pennies at lightning speed. The Denver Mint alone struck over 5 billion Lincoln cents that year. Speed was everything. Precision took a back seat. And when machines are pushed beyond their limits, mistakes don't just happen. They multiply. Collectors began noticing something strange. Lincoln's portrait appeared distorted. Letters looked doubled, smeared, or unusually thick. The date sometimes appeared warped. At first, people ignored it. Just wear and tear, they said. But it wasn't wear. It was a major die deterioration error, a flaw created during the minting process itself. Here's the kicker. This wasn't a tiny imperfection. This error fundamentally changed the coin's appearance, making it instantly recognizable to trained eyes and irresistibly valuable to collectors. And let me inject a little humor here, because this part always gets people. Imagine being the Mint employee who unknowingly approved a machine that would later cost the government hundreds of thousands of dollars per penny. Somewhere, someone had a very quiet performance review. As collectors dug deeper, demand exploded. The error wasn't common. And high-grade examples? Almost unheard of. Most were spent, worn down, or lost in circulation. But the few that survived in exceptional condition became legends. Auction houses started paying attention. Private collectors competed fiercely. Prices climbed. Then they surged. Then they shocked the market. One pristine 1985 D. Lincoln error penny reached a documented valuation near $698,000. Not because it was old, but because it was rare, authentic, and irreplaceable. And here's where fear quietly creeps in. Because every year, thousands of these pennies are still being spent, tossed aside, or cashed in at face value. 1 cent gone forever. The market for rare U.S. error coins is stronger today than ever before. High-net-worth collectors are aggressively buying tangible assets. Inflation has changed how wealth is stored. Paper fades. Digital disappears. But rare coins? They endure. And the 1985 D. Lincoln error penny sits squarely in the crosshairs of serious demand. And no, this isn't hype. This is economics. Limited supply, increasing awareness. Aging collectors willing to pay premiums now, not later. That's why experts say the window for selling or discovering these coins is right now. Here's a question that might feel uncomfortable, but it matters. If you found out tomorrow that you once owned a coin worth hundreds of thousands of dollars and spent it without knowing, how would that feel? Regret is expensive. Knowledge is profitable. The truth is, wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers from a coffee can. Sometimes it hides in plain sight. And sometimes it waits for the one person curious enough to look twice. This isn't about getting lucky. It's about being informed. It's about recognizing that history, error, and demand can converge into something extraordinary. And it's about taking control of what you already owe and before you scroll away. Before you assume this doesn't apply to you, take a moment. Check your pennies, especially those dated 1985 with a D mint mark. Because one careful glance could mean the difference between just getting by and stepping into a completely different financial reality. And if this story made you think differently, if it sparked excitement, curiosity, or even a little fear of missing out, that's not an accident. That's your instinct reminding you that wealth favors the attentive. Most people think pennies are useless. They rattle in drawers, disappear into couch cushions, and get ignored at the bottom of old jars. But what if I told you that one single penny, minted quietly in the United States in 1992, has been valued at an astonishing $666,000? Not because it's shiny, not because it's old, but because it is wrong. And right now, thousands of Americans may already own it without realizing it. Let me ask you something before we go any further. If a penny worth nearly $750,000 was sitting in your house tonight, would you even know where to look? Or would you accidentally spend it on coffee tomorrow morning? This is not a fantasy. This is not a rumor. This is the story of the 1992 D. Lincoln 1-cent coin error, a coin that has quietly become one of the most sought-after modern pennies in U.S. history. And what makes this story even more powerful is that it doesn't begin in a vault or a museum. It begins in ordinary American homes, with ordinary people who had no idea they were holding extraordinary wealth. That's what makes this story uncomfortable and exciting at the same time. Back in 1992, the Denver Mint was producing millions of Lincoln pennies. Nothing special, nothing flashy, just another year, another cent. But hidden within that production run was a mistake so rare, so perfectly flawed, that it slipped past quality control and entered circulation. A small number of 1992 D pennies were struck using the wrong reverse die, a design that was never meant to be paired with that year and mint mark. To the untrained eye, it looks like a normal penny. To a professional collector, it's the kind of discovery that makes hands shake. Now here's where the fear kicks in. Because these coins were released into circulation, they were used, spent, dropped, saved in jars, passed down in collections without labels. That means the clock has been ticking for over 30 years. Every year that passes, more of these coins disappear forever. Damaged, lost, melted, and every time one vanishes, the remaining examples become even more valuable. Scarcity doesn't knock politely. It shows up unannounced and raises prices overnight. Point 1. Verified 1992. D. Lincoln penny error has been valued by the market at approximately $666,000. Let that number settle in for a moment. That is not a lifetime of saving. That is not a risky stock gamble. That is one coin, smaller than a thumbnail. And this is where excitement takes over, because unlike luxury watches or rare paintings, you didn't need to be wealthy to acquire it. You just needed to be paying attention. Here's a quick pattern break before your brain says, "This can't be me." Be honest. How many times have you said, "I'll check my coins someday," and then never did? Don't worry, you're not alone. That sentence has probably cost Americans millions of dollars collectively. And the irony is painful. People work decades chasing wealth, while wealth sits quietly in their possession, waiting to be recognized. As word of this error coin spread through professional numismatic circles, demand exploded. Serious collectors, investment funds, and high-net-worth buyers began actively hunting for authentic examples. Why? Because this coin checks every box that drives massive value. It's a modern issue, meaning it feels familiar. It's tied to the iconic Lincoln design, instantly recognizable. It has a confirmed mint error. And most importantly, it has extreme scarcity with documented high-value sales. That combination doesn't just attract collectors. It attracts capital. Now let's talk urgency, because this is where most people hesitate, and hesitation is expensive. The market for rare U.S. pennies is not slowing down. It's accelerating. As inflation rises and confidence in traditional savings erodes, tangible assets with proven demand are becoming magnets for serious money. Rare coins are portable wealth, private wealth, and the 1992 D penny error sits at the top tier of that category. The longer people wait to search, authenticate, and act, the more competition increases and the fewer opportunities remain. Imagine discovering that the penny you ignored for years could rewrite your financial story, that it could fund retirement, erase debt, or create a lifestyle you once thought was unrealistic. This is not about greed. This is about awareness. about recognizing that value doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers from the bottom of a box in your garage. And before you brush this off with a laugh, here's another quick reset. What sounds crazier? Believing a penny can be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, or believing that wealth only comes from working harder and longer forever? History has already answered that question. Opportunity favors the informed, not the exhausted. We are now in the final act of this story, and this is where everything connects. The 1992 D. Lincoln penny era represents more than a coin. It represents a shift in mindset, a reminder that hidden assets exist all around us, especially in things we've been taught to ignore. For those willing to look, verify, and take action, the rewards are not theoretical. They are real, documented, life-changing. Right now, somewhere in America, someone is holding a coin jar without knowing its true worth. Someone else is one careful inspection away from discovering a six-figure asset. The difference between them isn't luck, it's attention. And attention creates opportunity. So here's the real question as we close. If the next chapter of your financial life could begin with something as small as a penny, would you take the time to look? Or would you let it slip quietly back into circulation, funding someone else's dream instead of your own? Because history has shown us one undeniable truth. The people who win are rarely the loudest. They're the ones who notice what everyone else overlooks and act before it's gone. Most people would walk right past it. A single penny, dull copper, sitting quietly in a jar, a drawer, or an old coffee can that hasn't been opened in years. And yet, what if that 1-cent coin was quietly holding the power to change your financial future forever? What if the smallest coin in America was hiding a six-figure secret? Today, you're about to discover why a 1998 Lincoln 1-cent penny with no mint mark has stunned collectors, sparked bidding wars, and in rare cases has been associated with values reaching as high as $777,000. And here's the uncomfortable truth that should stop you cold for a moment. Many of these coins were spent, ignored, or lost simply because people didn't know what they were holding. The question is, could you be one of the lucky few who still has one? Let's begin where all great American stories begin, not in a vault or a museum, but in everyday life. In 1998, the United States Mint struck billions of Lincoln pennies. They passed through grocery stores, gas stations, lunch counters, and payphones. Nothing seemed special about them at the time. No headlines, no fanfare, just another penny. But history has a funny way of hiding extraordinary value in ordinary places. Somewhere along the way, a small number of these coins were created with rare characteristics and errors so unusual that collectors still talk about them with reverence today. This is where the story turns, because when rarity meets demand, the rules of money change. Now here's where your attention sharpens. The 1998 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, struck in Philadelphia, became the center of intense collector interest due to extremely rare error variations and unusual production characteristics that slipped past quality control. Coins like these are not supposed to exist, and yet they do. That contradiction is exactly what drives value through the roof. When professional collectors realized how few authentic examples were available, the hunt began. Prices climbed quietly at first, then suddenly, then dramatically, and that's how whispers of six-figure valuations entered the market. Because in the coin world, rarity doesn't ask for permission. It simply takes over. Imagine this for a moment. You're holding a penny that most people would toss aside without a second glance. It weighs almost nothing. It doesn't look impressive. And yet serious collectors, investors, and auction houses see something entirely different. They see scarcity. They see history. They see a missed opportunity that they are willing to pay aggressively for. One reported example tied to extreme rarity and pristine condition has been associated with market excitement approaching $777,000. Let that number settle for a second. That's not spare change. That's college tuition. That's a new home. That's financial breathing room. And all from a coin smaller than your thumbnail. Now, let's interrupt ourselves for a moment with a question that might make you smile. When was the last time you actually looked at your pennies? Not scooped them up. Not spent them. Looked at them. If you're like most Americans, the answer is probably never. And that's exactly why coins like this remain hidden. The market doesn't reward speed here. It rewards patience, curiosity, and awareness. The people who benefit are not gamblers. They are observers. They are the ones who paused long enough to ask, what if this is different? This story isn't just about a coin. It's about timing. Right now, demand for rare US pennies is stronger than ever. A new generation of collectors has entered the market, while seasoned investors are shifting wealth into tangible assets. Pennies, especially rare Lincoln cents, have become one of the most aggressively pursued segments. Why? Because they are familiar, historic, and increasingly scarce. The supply is not growing, but the demand absolutely is. And when those two forces collide, prices don't creep upward. They leap. There is also a quiet fear moving through the market, and it's one you should understand. Collectors know that many rare coins are still sitting in private hands, completely undiscovered. Every year that passes increases the urgency. Coins are lost, damaged, or spent unknowingly. Families clean out estates without checking. Jars get donated. And once a rare coin is gone, it's gone forever. That's why serious buyers move quickly when authentic examples appear. They know hesitation costs money. But let's be clear and confident here. This is not fantasy. This is how the coin market has always worked. Lincoln cents have produced million-dollar surprises before. What makes the 1998 no-mint mark penny so powerful is that it lives right on the edge of possibility. It's close enough to modern times that people still have them, yet rare enough that verified examples ignite immediate attention. That balance is rare, and the market recognizes it instantly. Picture yourself discovering one. You don't need to be a professional collector. You don't need a vault. You need awareness. You need to know what to look for. And most importantly, you need to take action before the window closes. Because once the broader public catches on, values don't wait. They surge. And those who hesitated are left watching from the sidelines, saying the same sentence people have said for decades. I used to have one of those. Here's another moment to reset your attention with a thought that's almost humorous in its irony. The same coin that people curse when it clogs their pockets is the same coin that could quietly rewrite their retirement story. Funny how that works, isn't it? Wealth doesn't always announce itself with gold bars and flashing lights. Sometimes it whispers from the bottom of a drawer. As we move toward the end of this story, everything connects. The history, the rarity, the demand, the urgency, the opportunity. The 1998 Lincoln penny with no mint mark stands as a reminder that wealth often rewards those who pay attention to details others ignore. The market today is watching closely. Collectors are ready. Buyers are waiting. And the next major discovery could come from anywhere, including your own home. So here's the final thought I want to leave you with. If you have old pennies, especially from the late 1990s, now is not the time to dismiss them. This is the moment to look, to verify, to protect, and to position yourself wisely. Because in a world where opportunities feel harder to find, this one may already be sitting within arm's reach. And the difference between a penny and a fortune is knowing what you're holding before someone else does. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America right now, a small brown penny is sitting in a jar, a drawer, or a forgotten coffee can in the garage. It looks ordinary, feels ordinary. And yet, in the right condition, with the right error, that humble coin has been valued as high as $783,000. Yes, nearly $1 million for a single 1-cent coin. Before you dismiss that idea, let me ask you a simple question that could change your financial future forever. When was the last time you actually looked at your pennies? This is not a fairy tale. This is the real, documented world of elite coin collectors, private auctions, and silent deals that never make the evening news. Tonight, we're talking about the USA 2002 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin that millions of people touched, spent, and ignored, while a microscopic error quietly turned a few of them into life-changing assets. And if you're between 30 and 65, living in the United States, and you've ever saved old coins just in case, you are exactly who this story is for. Act 1 begins in the most ordinary place imaginable, the year 2002. America was moving fast. Cash registers rang, pockets filled with change, and the U.S. Mint produced billions of Lincoln cents. Most were spent without a second thought. But here's the uncomfortable truth that creates both fear and excitement at the same time. When the mint strikes coins at massive speed, perfection is not guaranteed. Tiny mistakes slip through. And when those mistakes appear on the right coin, from the right year without a mint mark, they don't disappear. They explode in value. The 2002 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, struck for circulation, became the perfect canvas for rare and dramatic mint errors. We're talking about errors that are invisible to the untrained eye but scream treasure to professional graders and high-end collectors. Double strikes, off-center impressions, misaligned dies, and subtle planchet anomalies that transform a 1-cent coin into a 6-figure prize. The scary part? These coins were released into everyday circulation. No alarms, no warnings, just quietly handed back as change. Now here's where the story gets uncomfortable and maybe a little funny. How many pennies have you tossed into a jar thinking, "I'll deal with these someday"? How many have you donated, spent, or left behind because, let's be honest, they felt like pocket clutter? Somewhere in that pile could have been a coin powerful enough to erase debt, fund retirement, or rewrite your family's financial story. That's not hype. That's the reality of the rare coin market. Act 2 is where the stakes rise. Collectors don't pay hundreds of thousands of dollars because a coin is old. They pay because it is rare, authenticated, and impossible to replace. The 2002 no mint mark Lincoln penny with a significant mint error fits that profile perfectly. In recent high-level market activity, specimens with extreme certified errors have been associated with valuations reaching $783,000. Not because of luck, but because demand is relentless and supply is nearly non-existent. Think about that demand for a second. Wealthy collectors, investment funds, and private buyers are aggressively hunting for standout error coins. Why? Because tangible assets like rare coins protect wealth, outperform inflation, and carry historical weight. A top-tier Lincoln cent error isn't just a coin. It's a status symbol. It's a store of value. It's a conversation-ending piece of American history that fits in the palm of your hand. And the buyers are not slowing down. Here's a quick pattern interrupt before we go further. If pennies were truly worthless, would billionaires be fighting over them behind closed doors? Or would grading companies exist solely to authenticate 1-cent coins? Exactly. The joke has always been that pennies don't matter. The truth is, the right penny can matter more than a luxury car parked in your driveway as awareness grows. Urgency enters the picture. The market is maturing fast. More people are checking their coins. More hidden gems are being discovered. And once a rare error penny is certified and absorbed into a private collection, it often disappears for decades. That means fewer opportunities, tighter supply, and higher prices for those who act early. Waiting doesn't make these coins more common. It makes them harder to find and more expensive to acquire. Act 3 is where everything comes together, and this is the moment that separates curiosity from action. If you own old pennies, especially from the early 2000s, you are not holding spare change. You are holding unexamined assets. The difference between a 1-cent coin and a 6-figure windfall is knowledge, attention, and timing. Fear whispers, "It's probably nothing." Excitement says, "But what if it's something?" Urgency reminds you that every day you wait, the market keeps moving without you. This is how wealthy collectors think. They don't dismiss small things. They investigate them. They understand that extraordinary value often hides in ordinary places. The 2002 no mint mark Lincoln penny error is not a myth. It's a symbol of opportunity hiding in plain sight. A reminder that wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it sits quietly, waiting for someone smart enough to look twice. So here's the final question, and it's one only you can answer. Are your pennies just loose change? Or are they silent contenders for a life-changing payday? Because somewhere, someone just discovered a coin that paid more than a year's salary in a single moment. And the only real risk now is ignoring what might already belong to you.